That's maybe one of the funniest stories I ever had. Security guard guy's like, whoa, 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 like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm not young, and this is Kanoa Igarashi. In the car, freaking Rob Machado and Tom Walkenfeld, which was like the sickest thing ever. I've gotten 10 times better since I started working. If it wasn't for Brad and Weavkey, I don't think I would be. I just show up places. If it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have ever made it back home. It'll be 6 foot one day and flat the next. Like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. How nervous I would get that I would have to like take reverse your thinking almost and be like excited to do it because you don't know what will come from it. It's a really special, sacred place. Craziest, most perfect wave I think I've ever surfed.
Welcome to the third episode of Beyond the Lineup. I'm Xavier Math, and alongside me is my co-host, Lily Colbert. Our special guest today is someone that I've competed against since I was 14 years old. Now at 23, he has probably been to more countries than most people have ever been in their lifetime. He's known for chasing crazy swells and getting insanely barreled. He can surf anything from 1-foot Malibu to 40-foot Mavericks. I have had the pleasure of growing up with him in San Clemente and surfing with him on the legendary San Clemente High School surf team. Please welcome my good friend, Max Beach.
Yeah, Xavier, thank you, bro. Thanks for having me on the show.
Stoked to have you here.
Thanks,
Thank you for joining us today. So stoked that we were able to do this like last minute. I feel like there's so many cool things happening in your life at the moment. What have you been up to lately?
So lately, like go back maybe 2.5 months, I went to do a lifeguard stint on Tavarua. And I was there for about a month, and I got to be there for the first few days of the CT event there, which was super rad to be there with some guys from San Clemente on tour, like Griffin and Crosby and Cole, which was super rad. And then the waves were honestly pretty small. The whole time that I was there, that was like the only little downside. But the Fijian people are so wonderful. They're like the nicest, like, people from anywhere that I've ever been by far. Like, they're so welcoming, loving, generous, and I think a big part of that comes from they're like super religious too, a lot of them. So I think that they just like every day they're like trying to put a smile on someone's face, and it's a really special, sacred place that I had the pleasure and I was super lucky of going there from a young age. Like, it was a family trip they would do like once a year. And then Tavarua was really special to me, and then that was awesome. And then I kind of like after the trip was coming to end, and I was like, oh, I'm going home. Haven't really gotten barreled at all, and I was like kind of like, I need to go somewhere else. And thank God my like first day that I got to Tavarua, there was like a little bit of swell. It was like kind of dropping off, but it was just enough. And then they actually ran the trials out at Cloud Break, so I couldn't surf out there. I surfed in the morning till the trials started, and then I went to restaurants, and I got one pretty good one, and Surfer had this thing like Clips of the Summer, and I won the thing there, and it was like $1,000.
No way.
So then I like had that, made a little bit of money from lifeguarding, and
you
just
were
like some tips from
you were a boatman.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Right?
And then that was the blessing, was like getting a little money, because I was like, okay, now I'm not going home, I'm going to Indo. And so I went to Indo for like a month, and most of the time that I was there was spent on Lombok at Desert Point, which was my first time there. So that was like one of the biggest, like, I don't know, if we grew up watching like Andy Irons, if you grew up watching Andy Irons, my favorite part is his high five part, like a Trans World movie. And it's so insane, like the Vero's Eye, it's like the name of the song by Future Islands, and like I was playing that song like on the car ride to deserts, and then I got there, and it was honestly high tide, and it was like flat.
Oh,
and I was like,
really?
oh, this is kind of trippy, and I had heard from some people on like it's a super tide-dependent wave, and I was like, oh, I wonder if there's going to be waves this afternoon, and I had like traveled all the way from Fiji, and I got like some kind of stomach bug of some sort coming from Fiji that I was like dying, like super sick, like literally it was a full blowout, like throwing up like on the plane and stuff, like coming from Fiji. It was just like the gnarliest thing.
Funny.
And so when I got there and I saw it was like almost flat, I was so tired from traveling, I like went to sleep early that day, and I think it got like fun that afternoon because the swell was filling in, but I was sleeping. I like slept when it was like 3 foot, like perfect, probably little runners at deserts, but then I slept for like, I don't know, 16 hours or something because I was so exhausted. And then when I woke up the next morning, it was like firing Desert Point, and I was like the first one out. And it was a super special feeling to like experience a place that's known for being super crowded, and to experience it with only like a handful of people. My first day there was really special, and it got more crowded the next day, and I did like 3 more trips back there, and one of them I did on scooters with Jack Hopkins and Nico Coley.
I saw that.
My friend Gian, and like it was one of the gnarliest missions, and I got sick that time again too.
How
Like,
long? How long was that scooter ride? And where was it from?
So we left from Bali, and then all the way to Padang Bai, which is like past Karamas a little bit. That's like a 2-hour scooter ride. And then since you bring your scooter, like there's like semi-trucks, all kinds of crazy stuff coming on to the ferry. It like takes a long time to load up, maybe like an hour. So we waited like at the ferry station for an hour or two. And then it was like, they say a 6-hour ferry ride, but it took us like 7 the time we did it. So, and then like another 2-hour scooter ride from the ferry. Where it lands, I think, is like maybe 2 hours further from Desert Point. And that ride's like really beautiful because there's a cove that kind of like comes all the way into Lombok, or it's an island, so the water comes all the way around, but there's like one stretch of it that like kind of cuts in like this, and that's where the ferry goes in. And then Desert Point is like you take the water kind of all the way around till it's like matches where the south swell like comes and hits, and it's like the very last tip of Lombok, and it's like the craziest, most perfect wave I think I've ever surfed.
That's funny that you said like you got sick in Fiji coming to Indo, because I feel like everyone's, whenever they go out to Bali, they're like, oh shoot, I'm gonna get Bali belly going out there.
I kind of got like a little Bali belly thing in Fiji somehow. Never got Bali belly in Bali, but my sinuses were blown out my whole trip in
That's the worst
Indo.
feeling when you're surfing in the water and you're duck diving, and then you can't even hear out of your ears, and your sinuses
you can't breathe, and like the more you surf, I feel like the lower it takes your immune system, and I just like would almost get better, and then surf all day, and then like feel bad again, and it was kind of like a cycle going up and down. But when the waves are good, it's like easy to just kind of shake it off. I never got nosebleeds like really in my whole life, and like I was getting them so gnarly like on the scooter, like behind all the fumes and like exhaust and stuff, dust. Like I should have worn a mask or something like that while I was there, because it was like crazy. I'd be riding the scooter, I'm like riding along, and they're all in front of me just mobbing, and I'd be like, oh, I got a nosebleed, and I had like my shirt or a towel, and I'm like trying to like stop the nosebleed, but then like the throttle is on the right hand, I'm like trying to keep up with them, and like I couldn't really like hold on with the left hand because it was like too sketchy. It was just like, so I'd have to slow down, and then I was like trying to catch back up to them, no service, like don't know where I'm going. It was kind of
maybe tie your shirt around your nose next time.
Yeah, that would be the call for sure.
I feel like scootering there is kind of gnarly. Like I feel like the roads are so packed. No way, what happened?
I went down. It was just a late night, and I just went down on the scooter. It was a late night, and I literally like, you know what's funny is I was going not that fast, but I was in a dirt lot where there's like full rocks and boulders, and I hit one of them like straight on, and it put me up in the air, like kind of like front tire up, and then when it landed back down, it didn't like, I don't know, like land solid. It like never engaged the tires or whatever. It'd be like engaging the fins in surfing or something. Like the tire never got engaged, and I just
slid out.
Slid out, dumped the bike over, and then my buddy from Hawaii, Maikai, he like crashed into me while I was on the ground too from behind.
Like ran over you, or?
Pretty much ran me over. I was like, I'm super lucky, honestly. Thank God that it wasn't worse, because I feel like I should have like a broken foot or ankle from it, but I just got like a super gnarly cut thing on my foot.
So now you're back at home, and we know that you've been working on something super special. You and your dad started this new Capacity Brewing company. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, we're super stoked to start something new in a category and in a market that's trending upward in a fast way. And I feel like timing is everything, and whether it be sports, business, or education, whatever it be, like your relationships, and I feel like a big part of it is about who you know and how you treat people, and then another major thing is like timing. And so with capacity, it's really exciting because there's a lot of craft breweries, like breweries out there that make really good beer, and I feel like no one has yet to make one as good as ours. And the other thing that's interesting about it is that like a lot of the brands who make non-alcoholic beer, they make like normal beer too with alcohol in it as well, but we're like completely just making alcohol free beer, certified. It's less than 0.5, so there is like a small percentage in it, and the brewing process is like super complicated for non-alcoholic beer. Like most breweries, craft breweries, they don't even want to make non-alcoholic beer because it's such a harder process that you have to be like more on time with like the way you brew it. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around like the whole process. I'm still learning a lot about it, and it's been very humbling to like be in an industry that I really knew nothing about, like coming into it. Whereas like surfing, I feel like I know it to like the highest degree, whereas like beer, the whole beer industry, I knew like nothing about. And then it's like led me on to learn a lot about how restaurants work and how the food industry works and how it all works, you know. Here, pulling out of here. Got a little 4-pack with me. We could try it.
Yeah, let's all try
it. Want to try one?
Yeah.
This is the IPA.
Yeah, I'll let you.
Fun IPA.
Oh, thank you.
It's like a session IPA. Yeah, there's a
Wow.
I think I might have brought another one too. There's a Mexican lager that we just launched like a month ago or so, and we keep selling out of that one. That's probably been our biggest like challenge, or not even like a struggle, I would say, because it's a good problem to have. But our biggest thing has been keeping up like on production of the beer, because we keep selling out of it so quickly. Which
that's
is
a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have. But
what does your production look like now? Like, where is your factory? And
cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.
Let's go.
Wow.
That's pretty.
I haven't had a beer like in so long. That is so good.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really good.
Thank you. It took my dad like, that was probably what took the longest, was to get the taste and the recipe down and everything like that. We contract brew, so we don't have our beer made like by ourselves technically. We work really closely with the brewers who have been making our beer, which is kind of like confidential, but a couple places, one place in Anaheim, one place in Carlsbad, and another just started actually recently brewing our beer is Judge Brewery here in San Clemente, and it was formerly known as Lost Winds. And new ownership came on, but it's the same head brewer, Brandon.
Got it.
And he's like the coolest, raddest dude. He's an amazing brewer. And he actually just brewed a batch of pale ale for us, and it came out super good.
Yeah, non-alcoholic.
Yeah.
What led to that decision?
So I would say a big part of that came from I would say a big part of capacity came from myself busting my dad's balls, like telling him he's out of shape and he needs to catch more waves, like he's blowing it, like you're kooking it. Like my dad and I are super like hard on each other, but it's because we both want what's like best for each other. And it was interesting. I remember one summer at Lowers, probably 3 or 4 years ago. It was like the first swell, and the waves were firing, and like I grew up watching him get like some good rights, like some proper bomb rights. And this day, like people were even being like, "Go Bruce," like whatever, and he was just blowing all these waves left and right. And I was just like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, what's going on?" And I was kind of like, "He's like just been having too many beers."
Too many beers.
Too many beers. So that summer, he like went on a complete drinking hiatus. Like, I'm not gonna drink at all. Like, I'm gonna get in good shape. And he'd always wanted to run marathons his whole life, and he just like never got around to it, never did it. And the funny or interesting thing is that he would do these prone. He did a couple stand-up ones, then he would do prone, like paddle races from Catalina to like there was one that would be from Catalina to Long Beach, and then I think there's another one that's like Catalina
it's like to Manhattan
or Manhattan Beach,
or
exactly.
Like Hermosa,
And then there's one that was like the Molokai to Oahu, and one year he like think he won, like, in his age group, the Molo guy to Oahu, which was super cool. And I got to be on the boat that, like, followed him across the channel and stuff, which was super rad. But that's the funny thing is when he would do those paddle races, I swear to God, I would watch him, like, prepare, train. And the training was, like, super gnarly. But a lot of the time he would still be, like, drinking. And, like, the night before the race, he'd be so nervous that he wouldn't be able to fall asleep. So he'd have to, like, crush some beers. And I swear, like, one night, I think we were on Catalina with, like, Chris Christensen, and they went through, like, a 12-pack of Tecates, like, the night before the race. And my dad probably drank the majority of them. And then he, like, crushed the race. Like, he did great. And I was just like, what? That's so weird. But I think alcohol is such a poison. And, like, for surfers, being able to paddle is more of just, like, a mind, like, mental thing than a physical thing. Whereas maybe with running, it's, like, more... It's both mentally and physically demanding, but his physical shape for running had to be, like, much higher than it were for paddling. And the biggest thing is that when he started to try and train for the marathons is he was, like, cramping, felt like shit, and he was drinking. And then he was like, you know what, I'm quitting. And this is when he quit drinking that summer. He's like, I'm going to train for a marathon. I'm going to get all gnarly, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, right. Like, let's see it. And that's funny that this is what this fully stemmed from. And so that summer, my dad, like, completely was, like, training for the marathon. He's like, I'm going to quit drinking. And then, like, a month went by. He'd quit drinking, was training. Like, he was starting to feel much better training without drinking. And he was, like, actually making a lot of progress. Like, was losing a lot of weight and, like, figuring out, I don't know, like, his whole training routine. And he started, like, running out, like, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles. And, like, my dad always ran a lot before that. But, like, when you work your way up to a marathon, he would even do, like, sometimes 2 a day, where he'd, like, run, like, once early in the morning and then once, like, at night. But that summer, he, like, about a month went on, and he's like, oh, I just miss the taste of beer. Like, I just miss the taste of beer, and, like, I don't even want, like, the effect of one, but I just miss the taste. He's, like, such a craft beer connoisseur. And so that's when he started trying a bunch of non-alcoholic beer. And, like, from what he claims, he tried pretty much every non-alcoholic beer that was out there, and he didn't think anyone was making it as good as it could be made. So then that's when he had the idea of starting his own. And, yeah, that's pretty much where it came from. That's kind of the story. And then he went on, like, to run the Honolulu Marathon and the Philly Marathon. I think he's got one coming up soon. It might be the LA or something. Austin.
Can we get your dad on the show, please?
Yeah, dude. He would be a great guy to have on the show.
Yeah.
Like, break the mics. He talks so loud.
That's hilarious.
I talk loud, but he talks, like, maybe twice as loud as me.
That is such a cool story. I feel like the coolest things stem out of, like, a genuine passion or, like, interest in finding the best thing and not being able to find it. So, like, hey, why don't I just make it myself? It doesn't exist at the quality that I think it can exist at. I think that's 100%. A super cool story. And there's, like, a market for it for sure. I feel like not drinking is definitely on the come up now, especially, like, I feel like people are realizing, like, alcohol really isn't that good for you when it's been so normalized for so long. So
that you're spot on, Lily. Alcohol is honestly like a poison, and I feel like capacity is all the flavor without the poison. You know, like, it's like tastes like a proper beer, and I honestly still love the effects of a real beer and, like, going out for a fun time with my friends, but as an athlete, to have something that's, like, actually a way better alternative for you with a great taste is really cool. I'm stoked on it, and hopefully this thing blows up and see where it takes us. But I think it's going to be a big part of my life the next few years, and a lot of work and a lot of grinding things out. But, I mean, I don't know, capacity could end up being, like, a major part of my life, so it's cool.
Well, I hope the best for you and your dad with the
new
brewing company.
Cheers.
It's really cool.
Legend.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, it tastes great. So
it tastes really good.
What role do you currently have in capacity, and, like, where do you hope to take it? Where do you hope to go with that? And, like, how do you see that playing out with surfing, and where do you hope to take, like, both of those?
100%. That's a great question. I would say for capacity, in the ultimate, like, end run is to sell it for hopefully a lot of money. That's, like, kind of the plan. But for the next few years, it's just going to be a lot of work and a lot of events and collaborating with people who we think are a great fit for the brand And I think a big part of our image and like what we would love to represent is like patriotism and collaborating with people who do a lot of things that's huge for America. And I feel like people in the law enforcement, military, first responders, firefighters are kind of people. Without them, I feel like our country would be hopeless. And so we want to do the best job we can to support everyone in those spaces. And I feel like a lot of them too, like the shit they go through is so heavy, and a lot of them do like drink a lot, but I feel like to provide a great alternative for them would be also super cool. But yeah, I think that as far as my like role goes or something, it's like we almost do like everything from the ground level of like packaging and everything like that to like going out and meeting with investors or opening up accounts. So it's like kind of every area, whereas some people might have like one job to do within a brand. I feel like there's maybe 3 or 4 of us. Johnny Munson, my dad's business partner, my dad, Bruce Beach, and Nico's older brother, Jose Coley. He's been a huge part of the whole brand building process, and he like specializes in like photography and all kinds of different like media content building stuff. He actually has a company with his wife. It's called Somos Volt, and they do like all kinds of photo shoots for companies and stuff like that. And he's really good with like whether it be Photoshop and Illustrator and stuff like that.
So it sounds like you wear a lot of hats in the company, especially since it's in like the startup phase. So
exactly. Like we can't afford to really like pay anyone all these different roles that there should be. So we're trying to fill them all as best we can. But I think like we're kind of looking at it in a way as like our like lives, future depend on it. So it's like super serious to us. But I think that as far as like roles go, I would say that like a big part of what I've been doing is just like the collaboration side of things and the social media. So I run all the social media and try and find the best people to collaborate with, whether it be events or sponsor people or whatever. And like that's the other tricky thing is we don't have any money to sponsor anyone right now. So it's like, oh yeah, do you want some beer?
Just throw it on your board.
Yeah, I mean we don't even care about a sticker, but like the people that we collaborate with is that we kind of know by them being a part of something that in the future that we hope is that we'll like take them for a great ride, you know, like along with us, whether it be surf trips or whatever it entails.
Well, you are very active on social media, I would say. What role does that play in your life? Is it more like to connect you with your audience, or is it like something part of your career for now capacity and then as a pro surfer?
I think both or all of those things is a big part of it is like building your brand. And it's weird, like I used to trip out on Instagram because I felt like for the longest time I was spending more time looking at other people's lives than like my own, or like instead of creating and doing the things that I loved, I spent like a lot of time looking at other people's creations. And I feel like in this world it's like so much consumption, so much like, oh, I want to look at this, look at that like it's special to be able to build your own like memories, own kind of like brand or whatever. And I still think it's great to look at everyone else's stuff to like network and keep tabs on people. But like I was like, when I was in high school, I swear it was like hours a day that I would be looking at Instagram or whatever. Like it's not healthy, and it's not like, I don't know, like it's weird because then that's a trippy side of like these contracts now in the surf industry. It's like a lot of them are like, oh, how many followers do you have? How many like likes do you get or whatever, which is not the way it should be really at all, because there's probably some people out there who are getting way more barrel, charging much harder, doing crazier airs, whatever, and they have a private Instagram with 300 followers and they don't care about Instagram. And then there's someone out there who has 100,000 followers and hardly knows how to surf, but they might be getting paid more for a surfing, sponsor. So that's where it's like, it's been tricky with me, like all throughout high school and stuff. I didn't have any support from like a major brand or anything. And up until recently, till I built my Instagram to where a point where like I had a lot of engagement is kind of when like I got some interest from sponsors and stuff. So I would say like to anyone who's younger, like use Instagram, like don't let it use you or something.
100%.
Like,
I think that's such great advice because I think that the younger generation, like they just are growing up with so many distractions and so many different things trying to capture their attention, you know? And it's just like, yeah, kids will spend like 8 hours on their phone a day. Like the screen times are just crazy.
So gnarly.
And I think that's such good advice. I feel like I had that realization too, where it was like I'm spending so much time looking at other people's lives. Like I should be like spending more time on this app, like sharing my life with other people than just like sitting there and like scrolling or like going out and like living my life. But like I love the content that you've been posting. I feel like it's super raw, it's super real.
Super raw and real.
And it's just like
I'd have to agree.
yeah, I feel like keeping it real is like the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to see.
And I would say thank you, Lily and Xavier. That means a lot. And I would say like it was probably, I don't know, maybe a year ago or like 6 months ago, but I was like just posting a lot of stuff where it'd be like, oh, I went surfing earlier that morning, and I'm like posting the clips of it there that night. And sometimes when you do something like super sick, I'll still sometimes do that. But it was like every time I went surfing, it was like, oh, it's for my Instagram post. Now it's like I try to make the Instagram post like drive a community towards something that I might be passionate about, whether it's surfing or beer or my friends, or because at the end of the day too, I feel like it's really important. Scared to like ask someone to do something because I'd be like, oh, I don't want them to say no or be over it. But I feel like anytime like you feel like that like little bit of nervousness or oh, I don't know if I should do it, it's like you should like reverse your thinking almost and be like excited to do it because you don't know what will come from it, because like you never know what opportunities might come if you do choose to do something that you might not be like passionate about or interested at the start.
I completely agree with that. I've had a huge mental change where like I used to be nervous about going and doing something, but I changed my whole mindset to being excited, because when I'm nervous, I'm like predicting failure, you know, versus like when I'm excited and like can't wait for it to happen, I'm like confident in myself, you know, and you're predicting that you're going to do better than you might do, but at least you're jumping in with confidence.
100%. I'm trying to like translate that into surfing and heats too, because I feel like when you like it always happens, like you get a little nervous, but like sometimes you come up against a big name and like you get nervous and you let it like kind of, I don't know, ends up affecting your performance or something. But I still always get like I feel like that's always going to be there, but I try to, like, instead of being like, oh, the contest is coming up, like, I'm like, fuck yeah, the contest is coming up. Like, I'm get so much more excited for them now. But I still, like, I some of my funniest stories that probably don't even sound, like, real are, like, how nervous I would get that I would have to, like, take a shit all the time. Like, all the time. How many times I've taken a shit, like, right next to the lineup before the heat has started is, like, can't even keep track of.
Like while you're in the water?
Yeah.
Oh my god, just like pull your pants down the side. I remember there's a story actually, I don't know if you remember this, it was like Griffin Colapinto, like the Hossagoard
totally remember that.
He took his
wetsuit down.
Pulled his wetsuit down, took his full...
Too bad I couldn't do that at Morro Bay.
It's freezing. It would go right back up you.
Did you actually?
Yeah, I shit myself in my wetsuit.
I remember your post about that.
Dude, I remember I was like, oh, that's trying to be raw.
Yeah.
Like,
before your heat?
Not before my heat, like right when the hooter sounded, right at the start of the heat. Like my stomach was like churning so bad, and I put my wetsuit on and it was freezing cold. And I was like, oh, I gotta take a shit. But I was like, oh, I don't want to get cold, like on the freezing cold silver toilet seat when it's 40 degrees this morning. And then, like, I don't know. And then I was, like, already prepared, like, watching the waves. I was like, I don't want to go back and forth and get cold. And I was like, oh, I'll just hold it till I'm done the heat. And I, like, went out. And then, like, I almost got that, like, churned stomach feeling that's so gnarly that it almost feels like a cramp, like, gnarly in your stomach that I could, like, hardly even paddle or move right. Like, it was affecting my, like, physical ability. And I, like, knew it was, like, turtle touching cloth or like turtle touching neoprene at this point, that I was just like, all right, like, fuck it. I'm just going to take a shit in my suit.
Let it loose.
I really blew it out, like, in my suit, and then...
Booties on?
Booties on, too, just full...
Did it affect your surfing after?
No, I won the heat.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta let it rip.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like, that content that you posted after when you were like, I just totally shit my wetsuit, and WSL, I just won that heat with the shit in my wetsuit. That's like the real shit that I feel like is missing in this world, and that a lot of people are striving to like to find. Because
100%.
everything is so like superficial on Instagram. It's like the same thing, and like it's really hard to tell nowadays like what's real from what's fake, unless it's just like a story of like someone actually doing it live.
Yeah, and I almost feel like nowadays too, like as you were mentioning earlier with like brand deals and stuff, like everyone's trying to curate like the perfect social image on like Instagram or whatever it is, right? Like try to create that perfect brand image, so they're like less likely to share that like real and that raw content. So
that's when I feel like things get the weirdest, is when it feels like fake.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't feel like right and it doesn't feel real, then it usually doesn't look right. Yeah. And I think a big part of the thing with brands is like they're all just trying to sell a product at the end of the day. So a lot of the time they're just like, oh, how does the product look? But like I think a big part of it is like how do the people look, or how do the people feel? And what's funny, I was just in New York visiting my mom and my sister, and I saw this Golden Goose ad, like the shoe company, and they sell shoes. And they had an ad, it was all over New York. They had like billboards where it was just a bunch of people's faces, like all different race, like backgrounds, whatever. And they all just looked so stoked with a smile on their face. And then like a small little Golden Goose logo. But like I feel like a lot of people look at things like that and get like stoked on seeing other people stoke, rather than like when it's inorganic and it's weird. I feel like that's when things get like funky and like people almost get turned off by it rather than turned on, which I don't know.
I can totally see that. Some surfers are probably, like Tia Blanco, are earning more money now without a sticker on their board, you know, due to like the social media partnerships. Where do you see the future of sponsorship going, and what should a surfer, an up-and-coming, inspiring surfer, anyone that wants to get sponsored, what should they do?
You know, that's a great question, Xavier, because I'm still trying to figure that out myself to the best
Come on, look at your board behind you.
But, you know, I mean, I have great support from some great sponsors. You know, Rourke has, like, been a huge blessing to me. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to do any of the things that I've done the last 2 years or so, because they've helped me out financially, along with Electric and Icerus, Laguna Surf and Sport. And I think my biggest like asset and blessing is Timmy Patterson. He's
the man.
The best shaper of all time. Sorry, Matt.
I back that statement. So you got two T. Patterson riders in the room.
Matt and Riola are like the marketing masters, and Matt is maybe the second best surfboard shaper in the world. Nah, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Wait, want to tell us about your board? Like what you're riding at the moment, what your go-to is?
I ride every kind of model that Timmy makes, kind of, but this one in particular is a small wave, kind of grovelly board. It's called a Synthetic 84, and it's got a little bump, and normally has a squash, but you could get it as a round tail, and it still goes super good. But usually bump with a squash. It's super full. It's got like a 80s nose, kind of. That's why it's called the 84. Yeah. And it's like super kind of thick, but like short usually. Like this one's only a 5'6.5". I usually ride like a 5'11". So like shorter, chunkier, thicker, wider, flatter bottom, has like a little V on the bottom, so it's still super maneuverable and easy to turn. And then this is cool. FCS owns Gorilla, and so I'm able to use their traction, which is super cool. And I think FCS just bought MFC Hawaii, which is who Kai Lenny, like he is used all their products, which I think they make like fins and all kinds of like super teched out surf gear.
That's awesome. And you have Timmy's fins in your board too, right?
Yeah. These ones are a little Timmy fin that I think work the best in small waves. I also ride the reactor fins a lot, which are like a FCS template, like carbon template. But these ones, I think they work the best with a couple of Timmy's models in particular, the synthetic 84 and and it's funny, it's the FCS2 like plug and slot in, but Timmy doesn't have his own FCS like fin yet, so he got all sneaky and found out where FCS made their fins and just sent them a file, which is pretty core right there.
That is super core. I feel like Timmy's as core as it gets.
Yeah.
That's
So
hilarious.
you have a pretty good relationship with Timmy, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was honestly a blessing today. I was able to just hang out with him like one-on-one for like an hour, which is kind of rare. And like, I don't know like how often that happens, but it's not often for me because usually I'm like, the freaking machine's going on, it's buzzing around, he's shaping a board, Keith's in there who does like all the kind of like dimensions and like helps to me out with the computer with a blank, the whole process. And it was cool because I got to hang out with Scotty for like 30 minutes before, and Scotty's one of our biggest capacity ambassadors. Hasn't drank for like 6 years or something, and he like missed the taste of beer, but he was never going back. But then when we started this, like, he's all stoked on it. So
that's so awesome.
Changing lives over
You
here.
said that was today, right?
Yeah, that was today.
That's so awesome. I'm going to have to text Scott.
Yeah.
I asked him if I could come in to talk to Timmy today, and he was like, Timmy's too busy. He has no time.
You know what's funny,
I was like,
though?
can I just come for like 20? He's like, no, he has no time. Like,
so what I do is I honestly, like, I just show up places is what I've kind of like figured out, or for me is like the best thing to do. Like
That
Nico
is so
actually got a little butthurt at me because I just showed up I told him I was coming, but like I just showed up where he was staying, and he's like, where are you staying?
In Indo, correct?
And I'm like,
yeah.
well, I don't have a place to stay yet, but I'll figure it out. And then I like talked to the guys at the surf shop there, and I was like, oh, like, so Nico's room, like, is it cool, like, if I stay with Nico? Like, and Nico is like, oh, Jack's already staying with me, but you could, like, sleep on the floor. So I was like, all right, I'll just ask the guys there, and just finagled my way to the floor of
That is
Jack and
so
Nico's
funny.
spot. Because I didn't have, like, I had enough money to, like, buy my flights there.
from
And, like,
from the grand that you won, right?
Yeah, buy my flights there and, like, eat food while I was there. And major shout outs to my sister. If it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have ever made it back home because I didn't have enough money to buy a flight
She
back
bought
home.
you a flight back
You went out with
My
the
sister's
one-way
a big
ticket.
baller. Yeah, I went out with a one-way ticket. That's how usually I go everywhere.
That is so awesome.
One-way ticket, you figure it out on the way back.
I was
Exactly.
just surfing with Nico 2 days ago, or last night, and he goes, we were talking about you, and he goes, freaking Max just showed up and just stayed with me and did whatever he wanted. And, like, we had no idea he was coming and staying in my place, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a Max move.
Dude, I need to start like
Just
taking
show-
that motto
yeah.
to my life. I need to just show up. I should have just showed up today.
Places, and if like Nico would have been like, no, I can't stay here in the surf shop, the guys were like, oh, is it cool with Nico? And they were like, no. Then I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep like, and I think I learned that from my dad, like in a big way. Is like, no matter if like someone says no to you and like you think that's your only way through, then like go around and like figure it out. Oh, jump through the loophole over here. Like talk to another person who might like be stoked on what you're trying to do rather than put you down. You know, like keep
100%.
looking for other people that are passionate about what you're trying to do. Because if you are around people that aren't passionate about what you're trying to do, you're not gonna get to where you want to be. I don't think.
Well, they say it's easier to ask for forgiveness
Yeah.
than for permission sometimes. So that's the kind of something my dad told me,
Yeah.
and I can see how he lives by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your dad's started a couple of like pretty successful businesses, and I just want to know like how has that impacted you, and like what have you learned from like his entrepreneurial spirit and his approach to life?
I think the biggest impact has been how it brought me to surfing and to meet so many like cool people who are like-minded in surf, skate, snow, music, whatever it might be. And my dad was the founder of Electric, and that was the craziest thing like growing up, because a lot of the time I would spend time in the warehouse and there'd be like all these cool sunglasses, stickers, t-shirts, jackets, whatever, and it was so fun. It's come full circle because I ride for him again now. And they have actually, like, their logo now is a little bit more modernized, but I love the old school logo the best. So I had Chris. He makes the stickers for Capacity and stuff, Silent Rock and whatnot. But I had Chris, like, make the old school die cut sticker.
I like that
the
sticker.
way that one looks. But yeah, so like growing up in the warehouse was super rad, and like I don't know, it was funny because how I ride for them now. This guy who was like the head of the whole warehouse, his name's Renato, and he still is at Electric, the same guy, like still in charge of the warehouse and stuff. And it's funny, I didn't even realize at the time. I was like, oh, my dad like owns a company, whatever, I don't care, like I'm just gonna grab these sunglasses that I like. Oh, look at this hat. Oh, I'm just gonna grab it out of here. Oh, and just walk out with all this stuff. And he's like, you little fucker, you'd just be messing up the SKUs. Like, we'd do inventory and there'd be like, oh, there's 5 pairs of shades missing. And it's like, oh, because freaking Madison, Mackenzie, and Max grabbed them all and just like took them for themselves, gave them away to their friends, like
just came
stole
in
some
and
hats.
fucking up all the
Yeah, fucked up the inventory. But I feel like what's funny is like when I was younger, I was so like spoiled and lucky, and it like I got to experience so many cool things. But what's like interesting is like looking back is like how far like my like mind came in a way, because like I feel like when I was younger I was like a lot more like entitled and just like thought that I could get things my way all the time or something. And then once I like got to being an adult, like things changed so much drastically, and I think like life got a lot harder like real quick. I was like,
Was there any like specific moment or some pivotal moment that made you have that shift?
I think a big part of it was like both my sisters moved out of the state, so I didn't have like the like tight knit, like I mean I have my dad and mom and like stepdad, stepmom and stuff like that. But I think when my sisters like weren't there, it was like a big kind of shift for me, and it was kind of honestly happened like younger even than being an adult. But I think that's when I had the mental shift. But they both went to college when I was like 14 or 15 or something, and then a lot of the time like my mom would be in New York too, and a lot of the time I would be staying like at my mom's house or my dad's house or whatever, like a lot of ping ponging. But then like it was like kind of different when my sisters weren't there or something, you know, because we could always talk to each other about what was going on. But then when it was like I was with myself a lot or by myself a lot, I feel like is when my like mind started to switch in the way of like, oh, you don't just get everything that you want, you don't just like get things without like working hard for them. And it was like a major like shock in like reality or something, like check or something. But I don't know, I think that life is like you end like up where you're meant to be, and like you have to go through all these mountains and valleys to like get yourself to where you want to be. And I feel like I'm still doing that. But I would say like the biggest shift for me, and it was like kind of hard like honestly for me when I was younger, was like when my sisters were like gone to college, because then I was like, okay, in 4 years they're gonna come back, and then like I'll have like my like people, you know, like in the sense where like you trust everything with them, you can talk to them about anything, and like they like spiritually like lift you up when you like go see them or get to like be around them or something like that. And I was like, oh, 4 years of college, they'll like come back, like, everything will be sweet. And then one of them ended up moving to Georgia right after college, and the other one moved to or she stayed in Texas right after, which is where she went to school, and then she went to New York, where she is now. And then my other sister from Georgia moved to Arizona, so she's a lot closer. But like that was like trippy when like I thought it was like, oh, 4 years like maximum, and then they're back, and then they're like gone for like who knows how long. And that's what was really special, is when I got back from Fiji and Indo's, that I got to go see my sister in Arizona for a couple days, and then my other sister in New York for like almost 2 weeks, which was super cool. Because I feel like that's like the saddest thing to me in life, is like when you see people, it's like families like go through gnarly stuff, and then they like end up like not close or not liking each other. Like there's a lot of people who like they don't talk to their brother, they don't talk to their sister or whatever it may be. But like I don't know, I feel like there's like it's like your DNA in a way. Like there's no one who could like understand you better than probably like your sibling or mom or parent or maybe best friend or whatever it may be. But that's like a big thing that I'm super big on, is like family, friends, like value kind of. at least.
There's nothing like family.
Yeah.
My sisters probably mean the world to me.
Yeah.
How has your sisters probably affected your perspective on life, going to school, and then you basically chasing, like, surfing?
So both of my sisters have affected me, like, greatly and majorly, but both in very different ways. Whereas my one sister who lives in New York, Maddie, she's, like, her, like, work ethic and her drive, and a big part of her whole thing, too, is, like, I mean, both my sisters, but, like, she, like works out, like, a lot. And I feel like, for me, I have surfing and do these things, but it inspires me to, like, I don't know, be in, like, better physical shape. Because she has to wake up at, like, whatever, like 5:30 a.m. every morning for work, because she works on Wall Street, but she ends up waking at, like, 4 every morning because she'll go work out for an hour and then go there.
Wow.
So, like, from her, like, work ethic, drive, like, oh, I'm too tired, oh, I'm too sick, I'm too sore, like, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyways. Like, that's what I learned from Maddie. And then from Mackenzie is, like being tough. Because, like, she's super tough and, like, strong-minded. And when we were younger, we used to always, like, butt heads a lot because we were so similar, I think. But, like, she's so tough that to the point where, like, she's honestly, like, I mean, like, tougher than me probably, like, physically, like, in a trippy way. Because, like, I remember, I'll never forget this, she, like, broke one of her fingers, like, completely, like, snapped it, like, all just, like, dangly and fucked up. And she was, like, I don't know, 15 or something, and she tumbled on a, like, big cheer team or whatever. They were, like, the highest level, like, cheer team, and it was, like, girls that were, like, from 15 to 18, and they would go to, like, this Worlds thing in, like, Florida. And I remember it was, like, the one before it to, like, qualify or seed yourself or whatever for the Worlds. And, like, she literally, like, was in the tumbling thing or whatever. Like, someone, I don't know what happened, but her finger was, like, all mangled. And she, like, was, like, before the thing, they're like, oh, you don't have to do it. Like, you don't have to go out there, like, the coaches. But she knew that if she didn't, like, her team wouldn't, like, qualify or be seated where they wanted to be or whatever. So she just literally, like, wrapped her finger to the other finger and, like, ended up, like, crushing it. But, like, when I remember she came, and, like, big part of the cheer is, like, having your smile, like, after you land shit and stuff. So she was a flyer, so she'd be up in the air, and then they, like, flip her, she'd land it, and then she'd, like, do all these crazy tumble, like, backflip, spin, full thing, like, land it, and then just be, like, all smiling, like, shakas, whatever. And then what's so funny, though, is, like, she came off, when they were done, like, they, like, crushed it. They did really good, and she was, like, bawling, crying, because it was, like, so gnarly. But, like, she just, like, faked that, like, the whole time, like, suck it up, like, mentality. And I feel like that's what I've learned the most from Kenzie is, like, being tough. And I think that now that we're older, it's, like, funny. We look back at, like, how we used to, like, laugh or butt heads, and now we get along great. And it's funny because I was always the one, like, fighting with both sisters, and both my sisters, like, they would, like, get in little arguments here and there, but, like, it's funny because now I'm, like, older, and I swear I don't fight with either of my sisters really about anything. Maybe something stupid every once in a while, but it's funny because now I see my sisters, like, they'll, like, get in their little, like, arguments now, and I'm like, oh, I'm not the one, like, causing the argument right now.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
That's for sure. You think there was, like, a moment in your life when you were a child where your surfing just, like, got so much better? Like, and what was that point in that drive for you?
That point in my life, it first started out, so Brad Gerlach would be the major
I wanted to
shift
ask
in
you
my
about that,
life
actually.
with,
Yeah.
like, technique. Brad Gerlach's wave key. Like, if it wasn't for Brad and wave key, I don't think I would be doing, like, any of the stuff or surfing the waves or how I do
Is
or
he a
anything.
coach?
Yeah, he's, like,
He's coach.
I mean, you could call him a coach, but I would, for myself, I would call him a mentor and, like, surfing technique expert. And a coach too, but, like, surfing technique expert and mentor, like, rank higher to me than coach, because there's, like, a lot of great surf coaches out there, but I don't think there's anyone in the world that can break down surfing to a T, like, on your bodily movements on land to well prepare yourself for when you go out to surf, that you don't even have to think about it, and it's just, like, second nature in the back of your mind. and your body just knows how it's supposed to work because you practice it so much on land, like these trippy movements. But another like spark when I was like younger, going back a little bit, was Dave Post. I don't know if you know Dave Post.
Yeah.
So Dave's he's a great guy, and his wife Liz and daughter Tava, which they made a sunscreen after her. Tava it's called, and her name is Tava from Tavarua, and then his son's name Zealand is after New Zealand, and those are like, Dave told me those are his two favorite surf spots like that he ever got to go to. So like that's how his kids' names came about. And my dad was still super busy around this time. I was probably like, I don't know, up until 11 or 12, I wasn't honestly that in, like, I loved surfing. I loved watching all the surf movies, but like myself, I was like, oh, I want to go skateboard. Oh, I'm going to go play baseball. I'm going to go play football. Like, I would do all these other things, and I was really scared of surfing, so I like felt like, okay, I want to go surfing, but like I wasn't like mentally like yet there. And then around like 10 or 11, I was like, oh, like this is it. This is what I want to do. And I remember one day, like 11 or 12, like being at baseball practice and knowing the waves were firing, and I was just sweating my balls off, just like shagging balls, and I was just like, this is, I want to be surfing right now.
The worst feeling.
I think every surfer knows that feeling. It's like that feeling when the waves are firing and you just
missing it.
Yeah, and you just like, want to be there surfing so bad. I think that's like a feeling that all surfers, like, they know that feeling so well, and no one else can like understand it, because waves just like, swells can disappear so quickly. I think they, you know that more quickly than anyone, just like from all of your travels, like waves come and go like that, you know.
100%.
Like, I've seen 100%. It on the East Coast, too. I feel like
East Coast is waves, the most, like, dominant waves, in that respect. Like, it'll be 6 foot one day and flat the next. Like, at least on the West Coast, we have, like, 3 days at least of, like, waves.
Yeah, I remember I was out there for a comp, and there were waves for, like, a day. There was, like, a crazy hurricane that hit, and it was, like, windy, huge waves, and then by finals day, like 2 days later, it was like ankle high, like a lake, sunny out. Like, you would have never known there was some crazy like, storm 2 days before.
Yeah. So crazy.
It is. But I want to go back to Brad Gerlach and Wave Key, since I know that was like a really foundational part of your surfing. When did you first start coaching with him? Like, how old were you, and how did you get introduced? Because I know there's like different levels to his training or whatnot, and I know that like he's also selective on like who he trains with. He like wants to train with really serious people. So
100%. And Brad, I would say from like 11 to like 13, my dad was still working a lot, so Dave Post would like take me surfing wherever the waves were best or wherever the waves were biggest, which was like Newport a lot of the time, sometimes San Diego, Huntington. If there was like a contest that weekend, I would go there, and like,
he would be the one driving you?
And he would be the one driving me and like take me to school. So like that was really big, and I got a lot better in that time, but my technique was not getting better, and like I was getting better in some ways, and in some ways my like technique was almost like becoming more flawed as I started growing and stuff. So with Brad, I was like almost 14, I think, 13 or 14, maybe it was 13 or 14. And that, like, most of my relationships in surfing came from my dad. And my dad, I think, used to sponsor Brad with electric and had known him since like the early 90s or whatever through surfing and traveling and stuff like that. My dad has a funny story of Brad Gerlach and Donovan Frankenrider. One time, like, my dad was coming through the airport. I think it might have been Arnett. It might have been electric, but he was, like, on the way to some meeting of some sort, and he's, like, on the way, like, coming through the airport, like, with a bunch of shit, he said, and he sees Donovan and Gurr, like, in the airport with their guitar cases open, like, jamming, like, for some money, like, for some bucks, like, at the airport, like, and then he's like, oh, where are you guys going? And I don't know if they were just arriving or going on another trip somewhere, but they're like, oh, we need a couple bucks, like, oh, just sitting here and jam. And my dad's like, people were just throwing them money, like, it was so classic.
That is hilarious in an airport. Yeah. I've never seen that before. So that's hilarious.
Does Brad, so I know Brad hits a lot on technique. Does he hit at all, like, in the mental sphere?
Yeah.
And how has that impacted you?
Yeah,
what do
everywhere.
You do?
Everywhere, like, so there's a lot of situations, like, in my life where I would feel, like, in between my parents or whatever, so a lot of the times I would just talk to Brad. like about things if it was like in between. So he was like a big mentor to me, and like mentally I feel like he makes everyone feel good like about themselves, and he'll point out like where you're effing up, but he mostly is just like obsessed with getting people better at surfing, and it'll stem from like, I think this is like the most beautiful thing with wave key is when Brad starts with someone when they're young, because then their surfing is like, it's 100% guarantee. Like if you
like
just look
Taro,
at
it's crazy.
Taro, Noah Hill, Parker Coffin, Connor Coffin,
and now like Wheeler on the come up,
Wheeler Hasberg. There's kids from Australia that started with them when they're young. Like it's 100% that every single one of them is like gonna be a top 1% level surfer. Like that's just a fact. Like you just look through his track record, and then that's like what I think is like the craziest or the most special that your surfing could get to if you start with them while you're young. So parents, if you want to make your kid the best surfer, next Kelly Slater, go see Gurr. But for real though, like the coolest and craziest thing that I've been able to help Brad with sometimes is work with people who are like just started surfing and they're like 50 years old or whatever, or they've been surfing since their 30s or whatever, got into it late. And I think that's the hardest for people to keep improving or to get better is when you're already older, because you're like taller, you're further away from your surfboard, your center of gravity is like a little bit more like wobbly. When you're small, when you're a kid, like you're so low to the ground, so you like learn the basics and importance of being low and twisting rather than leaning, all these things. And so there's been like people who are like older, and I teach a lot of surf lessons like where it's just pushing people in. I teach them how to take off, and that's kind of it. And like there's been a lot of kids who I've been able to teach, which is my favorite too, and I think that's Brad's favorite, is like people who are really like trying to take it to the next level, is like seeing the people go from like, I don't know, barely knowing how to surf though to like really knowing how to surf and learning how to surf like later on in life is pretty crazy. And I don't think a lot of people are able to do that, but like I've seen people with Brad who they didn't start surfing till later, and it's through rare. Wave key, it's rare.
It's so rare.
Like there was 10 instances maybe. One of the coolest ones that I ever got to do was with Brad in Encinitas, and we did it like 2 or 3 years in a row with them, and they're actually the founders of Acne Studios. I don't know if you know, they're like a
I do. That's
company.
awesome.
I don't.
Like they're like big like fashion company
I
from
know them,
Sweden. And Teresa and Johnny, like they're the founders, and they have a couple sons. Their son Tage, like I would surf with and help him as much as I could, but like their family, like I think they borderline were like just super beginner, and now like they all like shred and can catch waves on their own, and like through Brad was how they got to that point, you know. Like I think that they had surfed with other people or like had been taught before, but once they started working with Brad, it was to a level that they went from like hardly any experience to like being able to go out there and surf on their own. So you can like have that beginner phase to taking it to the next level with wave key, or you could be like a top 1% level surfing and you're like trying to win a world title and you want to take it like a 0.0001% notch even higher, and like he has like the ability for someone that's super beginner to take him like higher, or someone that's already super good to take him even that extra notch, which I think is super duper rare, and maybe not anyone
like
else
non-existent.
like it
Yeah, because I've never seen someone older get to that next level.
There's some guys who like they don't start surfing till they're like 30 something, you know, and then now they're 50, and like they never got hardly any better until they were whatever in that time span hardly got any better, and then they work with Brad for a year and they're like, I've gotten X amount of better, 10 times better since I started working with you in a year. Like I'm able to do like full turns and stuff now, and like I'm able to catch more waves because you just gave me a couple tips. And like I feel like there's some tips with paddling and stuff that yourself or myself or anyone could teach people, like basic beginner stuff, but the way Brad's able to give like these analogies with stuff that doesn't have to do with surfing, because he's like really knowledgeable in other aspects, other industries, areas of life, so he's able to kind of communicate with people through through whatever it might be, like if he's trying to teach you a certain body movement or whatever, but he's able to communicate with people like better. One, I think, because he's able to make like everyone laugh, and two is he uses these analogies that are like funny a lot of the time and like sound crazy, but they actually like they go to your brain and then it like computes to your body. Like there's this like connection between your mind and your like body that I feel like that's what wave key is for like surfing. It's almost like the connection of like your body and mind so that you know like the movements, but then when you're surfing you can just go surf and not think about them, and then your mind already has that mind to body connection because you practice these certain movements like on the land.
And so what do the movements look like the wave key movements? Is it like specific to every person, or does he already have all the movements laid out?
All the movements are pretty laid out, and for definitely like different people there's specific things that he'll like work on more, but I mean a big part of it is like being low. Big part of it is like your positioning, your timing. I don't know, it's pretty like you just have to go check it out and experience it for yourself, and everyone has their like own takeaway on like the same thing, but for me like I think it's the biggest like kind of like surfing kind of, I don't know, thing to help people get better.
Yeah,
I think that there is in the world.
And do you practice wave key every single day?
I try to, and when I don't, I'm like kind of bummed at myself. But I'm not as on it as I should be. There's definitely days that I haven't done wave key today. I'm blowing it.
You gotta go do it after this.
You got the podcast.
Well, like, that's what, like when I am on a surf trip though, that's when I'm doing it like definitely the most, because I'm not running around shuffling beer, trying to do everything that I'm trying to do. But when I'm on a surf trip somewhere and like it's dedicated to surfing or a contest or whatever, I'm like doing it very religiously. But yeah, I honestly, everyone who does do wave key, like they all think that they should do it more. Like there's even some guys who I do know who like do it so much, like so gnarly, and I swear they're like gnarlier at wave key than me. But I mean, like there's only so far that I feel
it'll
like
take
sometimes,
you,
it'll take you too, because I feel like a big part of it is like time in the water too.
Yeah.
Because like you could do all the wave key you wanted, but if you don't get time in the water, like at some point, like let's say you just learned how to surf and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna go surf at all, I'm just gonna do wave key. It has to be like a balance of both. Like, and I feel like, I mean, to be able to do like 30 minutes of wave key in a day is like very demanding. Like it's gnarly, like on your body, like whatever. Like I think that the best balance is to be able to, like, if you were to able to do 20 or 30 minutes of wave key every day and be able to surf for like an hour or two like every day, that would be like the best combo to like rapidly take you to
nothing
to the next
mimics
level.
surf.
Yeah,
Like you can't.
there's no substitute. Like my dad used to always just be like, water time,
just surf.
Water time, just surf.
Yeah, but I feel like wave key, like you could tell like the people like Taro Wheeler, like you can see who he's worked with, and it makes like such a difference. I feel like no one else has really hopped on, or no other like coaches or like training techniques for surfing have really hopped on the fact that like if you could figure out a way to practice on land and like strengthen the neural connections in your brain for your body to do those movements, then when you go out in the water it's just so much easier. Like it just clicks, like you're saying, like it just like your mind body connection. I feel like for other sports they figure it out like so many. I don't know, like it's funny because
there's like a lot of other sports the variables are so fixed. The soccer field isn't changing, the skate ramp is staying the same, the half pipe or mountain, hopefully there's not an avalanche, but it's like usually.
So I wanted to know, like, what are your thoughts on wave pools? Like, I don't know if you saw the lineup for like the CT events for this upcoming year, but they're gonna have an event in Dubai at the new wave pool there.
That is sick. I think wave pools are super cool. I haven't experienced them much myself, but the first kind of like little experience I had with a wave pool was actually at where the Palm Springs Surf Club is now. A guy named Tom Lockenfeld, who I think it's his technology, and he's like a big part of that whole thing. He invited Rob Machado and Brad Gerlach to go surf out there, but he asked Brad too. He's like, oh, bring 2 kids with you too, because the wave that we have right now is so small. I'm not sure if you will be able to ride it. So I went out there in the car with freaking Rob Machado and Tom Lockenfeld, which was like the sickest thing ever. And we met Gurr out there, and it was super rad. And I met Gurr and Taro out there, and it was super cool day. And we got out there though, and Brad and Rob saw the wave. It was like this big, and they're like looked at each other and we're like, we're not going to be able to surf that thing. We're not going out there. So Taro and I went out and like caught these little rights, and like I just like learned how to like kind of do like chop hops, and I was like doing them and like take off, do a little chop hop, and then the wave would like fizzle out. Taro would like take off, do a slash, the wave would fizzle out. But like I think they used those videos to like gather the investors and stuff like that for the wave pool.
That's awesome.
Which was kind of cool. Taro and I didn't really get much out of it, to be honest. They might have to throw us an invite out to the Palm Springs Surf Club, but no, that was like my first experience with one. And then I lived across the street from Kelly Slater for a little while, so I did have a conversation with him for like an hour one day about the wave pool, and he said that it was like one of the most challenging processes ever to be able to like move that much water, and like how much force it takes to like generate a wave like that is super demanding. And so I think his system is like maybe the most complicated because it's like on a train and it pushes the water, and it's
I wonder how they even came up with that. It's crazy.
So nuts. Like the other one in Waco and the one in Palm Springs, like they're a little bit like more like these like big turbine things like spin and like propel waves or whatever. It's a pretty trippy thing, but we're super stoked. Capacity is available at the Palm Springs Surf Club, so we're super stoked on that.
Yeah, you definitely should get an invite back out there to try that wave pool. Yeah,
we might have to do a little Capacity Palm Springs Surf Club combo event or something. That would be sick.
Yeah, that would be super sick. And then I had another question. I know you like traveled with Taro and Brad to, was it Bells Beach, right? Or like so Australia?
Brad used to live in Torquay for a number of years, and that was an insane experience getting to surf Bells and be around all the guys on tour and see how they prepare and what they do.
Were you kind of like simulating what it would be like to be on tour and preparing for that?
Yeah, and I feel like I would already do that before with Xavier and all us groms. Like the biggest thing for us was being able to go to the lowers contest and try and sneak into the VIP and try and hang out with all the pro surfers. And that's maybe one of the funniest stories I ever have, is successfully sneaking into the competitors area with Taro, because like the competitors, they don't even have wristbands or like anything, because they don't want like wristband or whatever. And we got into the area because there was a placard with every guy on tour and a photo of them and like their name. And Taro's like, oh, like how, like Brad was already like in the competitors area, I think maybe with Connor or something like that. And Taro's like, how are we gonna get in? And I was like, oh, we'll figure it out. Let's just like try and walk in like we own the place. And like we try and walk in, like there's a little door. I like go to open the door. Security guard guy's like, whoa, like what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm about to go out soon. I like saw the placard with the photos, and he's like, what do you mean you're about to go out soon? I was like, oh, our heats are coming up. He's like, oh, okay. Like who are you then? I was like, I'm Nat Young, and this is Kanoa Igarashi. And then the guy was like, looked at it, like did a little double take, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry guys, come right in. And so we just snuck right into the
that's hilarious.
VIP zone. And I think what was funny too is Eli Hanneman was already in there, and Kelly was in there too. And like it was the funniest thing. Someone had given Kelly a basketball, like I don't know why, but they like gave him this basketball that was like cool to them, and it was like a gift to Kelly. He was like dribbling it around and like passing it around and stuff, and like we started playing like keep away from each other with it, and then like Kelly would be dribbling, we'd like try and steal the ball from him. And that's like the coolest thing about Kelly, is how competitive he is with like everyone, with like everything, like no matter what sport it is or what you're doing. Like he like is such a competitive person. Like he was like getting like almost like annoyed, like, oh, these little fuckers, like he just stole it from me, like, oh. But that was like a funny, cool time. And I don't know, I think that for me, like growing up, like you said earlier, like a big thing, like simulation or whatever, like that was like the goal or like the dream, was to be on tour. and it still is for myself. But like now, like I feel like a lot of people look at it as like their happiness depends on the contest result or getting to where they want to be. But like my happiness kind of comes from like my friends, families, of course surfing and getting barreled. But like you could be getting barreled all day long your whole life, be on tour or whatever, but like if you don't have like family and friends around to enjoy it with, or like I don't know, I think that's like the biggest thing for me is like it's still definitely an end goal or a dream to be on tour that probably will like never die, and I'll always want to be able to hopefully get to that level. But I mean, like my happiness is more comes in like having great sessions with my friends, quality time with my family, rather than just like getting to the top pinnacle
100%.
of surfing, which would be insane too.
Oh, it would be insane. How big of a role do you think it was for like me and you growing up here in San Clemente, being able to surf with like Kolohe Andino, Griffin Colapinto, Crosby Colapinto, Cole Houshman, all these guys on tour now, and just like going to T Street and knowing like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to battle for waves today.
I think it's like a great thing to have people like that, because without those guys, like I don't think any other Grom from San Clemente would ever gotten to the point that they were. And then that goes like generations and generations before that, like Kolohe's dad, Dino, like Matt Archibald, like that was like a era and a time in surfing that like shaped the whole world of surfing, you know. Like it's pretty special to have a town like kind of revolve around surfing. That's not many places in the world. Like we're so lucky. Like I feel like our town revolves around surfing in like a trippy way, like a big part of our economy. Like I feel like everyone knows everyone from surfing, and like I don't know, it's really cool. It's really rad.
It's just the environment that we're into. We luckily
that Chloe's doing with 2% is really rad too. Like community started out with like surf movies with a lot of the boys.
Yeah.
Now he's doing his own little brand thing. But.
Well, recently we just kind of found out that Kolohe unfollowed a lot of the Groms and uncollaborated with all their
I was kind of tripping on that, to be honest.
So
thank God he didn't unfollow me, otherwise I would really be pissed. But he uncollaborated with me on every post I ever did from 2%, which I thought was kind of heavy. But like I understand he's trying to like build his brand and separate it from like everyone, whereas like kids that just ride for like 2%, you know. But I feel like a big part of where 2% got to where it is from a lot of the people who contributed to it to get it to that point. So it's like whatever, people who are in charge of their thing, they can do whatever they want, and people have their
it's kind of gnarly, just like burning bridges though.
Yeah, I mean there's like some things that I like trip out on Kolohe sometimes that he does, but I just know like him well enough to like not be tripped out by it anymore. Like he always has good intentions and he has a great heart, but like I think he like sometimes wants to do things a way that like reminds me of like the old Lost, like, you know, like it was kind of like punk and like piss people off, I don't give a fuck or whatever. But like I feel like the way the world is now, I feel like it's better to just be like positive and like, keep everyone stoked rather than like kind of like trash talk people or whatever.
I don't know how many people are stoked.
Yeah.
Like I know a bunch of guys that have put in so much time into building that brand. And to see them go is pretty gnarly to me. Yeah. I don't know, like who did all the filming?
And I think it's gnarly
and
too.
The surfing.
Yeah, and like how much like the money traveling, and even like it was to like contribute.
It was like smart though. It was like free marketing, you know, because everyone was like basically donating their followers through all the collaboration posts.
Well, it was for I initially thought it was for the community.
Yeah, that's what I.
That's why I'm confused by the whole. Drama.
I don't know. I mean, it's a trip. Like, to be honest though, it's not like it doesn't like surprise me, but it was like a little bit funny in like the group chat that we have with all of us kids when like it started out one day. It was like Nico was like, "Did you guys all get uncollaborated to the post?" And I was like, "Oh no, like I didn't." And Nico thought it was just him. He's like, "What the fuck? Like, did I do something? Like, what's going on?" And then like the next day, it was like 100 posts, whatever the word that it said on Instagram, like has disaccepted your invitation to collaborate or like whatever it was. But I was like, huh, it's kind of weird. He could have just archived them all.
Yeah, he could have. No, he chose drama. He chose
That's
violence.
what I always think. He's like going to like do stuff that like gets attention rather than like what's gonna stoke out like the masses. But sometimes people like who are outsiders get more stoked out by drama. That's why there's like reality TV. That's why there's all these things that like create this like spin effect of like any publicity is good publicity. But when you're like kind of bumming out the people who are like grassroots at the start and at the core of what we thought it was about, it's like kind of a little bit like
I think you kind of see that nowadays with the WSL. Like they totally went and changed their platform to try and get viewers that aren't surfers, like their core group, you know. And now all this, and then that's just gonna drive away the core group that supports them all the time now. And I don't know like a lot of really good surfers anymore that really does watch the contest until like maybe the finals, you know. So it's kind of what I was seeing.
When you like try to commercialize things and just your only thought is like the max profit instead of like, I don't know, the actual time that you're putting in or like the journey. You're just like, looking at the end but not enjoying like the moment or something. I feel like it takes away from the moment. I feel like the WSL is a tricky one because I feel like I don't know if they were ever like profitable or made money, and like from what I heard or as far as I know, like they were pretty much like the tour was about to be done.
Yeah, they're
the whole
not
WSL is maybe going to be done, and thank God in my eyes, because I think competition is something at that level, like guys getting paid that much should always be there. And Dirk Ziff and his wife, like they bought the WSL, and like by doing that they get to run it how they want. And the guy was like whatever, I don't know if he was the CEO of Oprah's like show or whatever, but he came from that background of like, oh, it's all just about the profit or whatever. But
well,
I don't know, I think they're still just losing money.
Kind of diving back on living life for the journey, what does success look like for you both in surfing and in life? And do you have a specific goal that you're chasing, or is it kind of more about the journey and the personal growth?
I think it's both. I mean, my goals are always there, and I feel like when you write down your goals and like you see them come to fruition, it's very rewarding. But there's been so many goals that I've written down that never happened. So I feel like for myself, I think like my goal is to just be like happy at all times. And I'm already like naturally, I think, a pretty like happy, stoked person. But I think that when you start like looking into the future too much, like sometimes it like takes away from the present. Like I think I was just saying this a second ago, but I feel like if you're like so focused on the future, you're like not able to enjoy what's like maybe right in front of you, and maybe the opportunity right in front of you could lead you to where that end goal may be. But I mean, as far as like end goals go or something, I think it would be ideal to be in a situation where you have like a house and a family and be able to go surf and really do whatever you want. So that's like my goal, and I think it's like going to be a lot of hard work before that time, but I'm like willing to put in whatever it takes to get myself to a point where I'm like financially stable and able to like provide for more people rather than just myself, which like I feel like in your 20s you kind of have to be selfish to like get yourself to where you want to be. But like once I'm like 30, mid-30s, like I want to be able to have a family that I can provide for rather than people always like having to provide for me, whether it be like a sponsor or a job or whatever it may be. I want to be able to like provide for other people just than myself.
Well, if surfing did stop tomorrow for you, whether that be an injury or just the earth goes flat forever, what would that next step in life be for you?
Well, if the surfing was completely taken away from me, I think right now it would be poured 100% into capacity. But That's a thought. That's a dark thought, Xavier. I don't think I ever want surfing to be taken.
Well,
away
I hope
from
it never ever gets taken
you
away
know,
from you.
that's.
But there's
kind of
beautiful
funny
things you
though.
can take away from that.
I think that if surfing was to like be completely taken away from me, I would like have more. I don't know. Like, there's some things that I always like wanted to do, but like I feel like with having surfing, I would never do them. But like honestly, like being a firefighter or in the military, like I think I would be too like tripped out on being like in the law enforcement, like police department, because I think it's the gnarliest thing like you could do maybe, because like especially in somewhere like California or like cities in California, whether it be LA, San Diego, San Francisco, New York, like people have no respect for like law enforcement, in my opinion. Like you see graffiti, just like dead cops, like ACAB, like everywhere. Like I just think that's fucking lame. And I don't know. I think that when I was younger, like there was this one time I was like, oh, I want to be a Navy SEAL. I want to be a Navy SEAL. Like maybe if surfing was taken away from me, I would do that. But then if it was an injury, I don't know how I'm gonna be a Navy SEAL with an injury.
Surfing is such like a blessing and a curse. Mostly a blessing, you know, because
mostly a blessing. The biggest curse for me with surfing is that I like look through my bank account and I'm like, oh, the surfboard. That's what was that much money. Oh.
The surf trip.
Oh, thank God I have a
expensive.
wetsuit sponsor and fins and stuff like that. Like traction, like that stuff all adds up too. But like the biggest thing that I pour most of my money into is like traveling and surfboards. And I'm able to trade boards in when they're like not in half. But a lot of my boards end up in half a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah. No, I try to, like, not break my boards, too, so that I can trade them in like, one piece.
Yeah.
But, yeah, in terms of traveling, like, I know you've gone to some pretty cool places. Like, what are some of your favorite, if you had to choose one trip, what was your favorite surf trip or your favorite, like, moment in surfing? You know, if you had to pick one moment to relive.
That's a really good one. My favorite place probably in the world is Tavarua, so
I can second that.
Probably there. And then I don't know, that's a great question. There's so many places that I want to still go too. And like maybe that one of the highest on my bucket list is to go to Ireland. Wow. I'm gonna get there.
There's
one
crazy
day soon,
waves there.
There's Mullamoor Head, and they're mostly all lefts too.
Yeah, they're all.
So I guess a goofy foot around. It's like, on that there's a wave that not many people know about that's in, I'm not even going to say, it's in some area of Mexico, and it's not too far from here.
Secret.
That Timmy Patterson knows, and I don't think it's been surfed for like 20 years.
Wow.
I think the Malloy brothers might have surfed out there. Mike Parsons, Snips, has gone there with Timmy. I don't know many people that have gone out there, and I think the last like few years it's been a little bit of a dicey zone because the cartel has been like prominent. They kind of took over the island that's out there. There's people dying every day. It's so gnarly.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you have a really good like competition.
But there's a big left out there that I want to go surf.
That would be pretty epic.
Winter, who knows?
Yeah.
How do you plan out your trips? Is it just like, do you just wait? Is it kind of spontaneous? Just like whenever the swell is like in the water? Because I feel like you're always on the best waves. I feel like you're always like somehow in the best swells, whatever. Like what's your process for that? Just like whenever there's waves, like, oh, I'm just going to go check this place out.
My dad and Dave, I feel like they know every surf spot from like San Francisco to like the border, like or even way past the border. They know every surf spot so good. So I was able to learn from two people like that knew each spot like very good. So then I like learned all the surf spots. Then I learned which ones were good on what kinds of swells, what kind of wind direction, like whatever. And then I was able through Surfline to just be like, oh, where's the waves going to be the best, and always try and be wherever the waves are the best. And it's funny because there's like 2 or 3 guys who I know. One of them's from La Jolla. One of them's from like Manhattan Beach area, and like I see them all the time, like wherever the waves are the best, whether it's in Newport or in La Jolla or in Santa Barbara or whatever. Like there's a few guys like who I'll just see like everywhere all the time, wherever the waves are best. And it's like we have a funny like joke like with some of these guys who I always run into. It's like, oh, you're at the waves or we're the best today, like. And like that's where I try to be, like wherever the waves are the best, like. And my friends are, like, a lot of time, Hagen or Nico, they'll ask me, like, where are you going this swell? I'm like, wherever the waves are the best. Like, and I don't even know until the night before, like 90% of the time. And the first time I went to Mavericks, that one was like pretty planned out because about like a year prior, and my boards took forever to get made because they were like 9.6, 10.0, like really big boards. But they took a long time to get made. I ordered them in like the winter time, or maybe a little bit before the winter, like October. I was like, oh, if there's a swell this winter, I would love to go from, I don't know, if I'm back from Hawaii and there's a swell, and there ended up not being a swell. Like, I was still in Hawaii while there was like Maverick swells or whatever that year, and I was like, I want to go surf Mavericks. I was like, I'm 21 now. Like, I want to be able to go surf Mavericks. Like, I'm 21. Like, should be man enough to be able to go surf there. And then it was like not ended up being until I was 22, and it was like October 17th of last year. So coming up almost on a year was like my first Mavericks mission. And it like literally was until like the night before I had to go that I didn't know how I was getting up there. Like, my car doesn't fit a 9.6 big board, so I had to borrow my dad's truck. I like knew that I needed to bring a filmer with me, but I like didn't know who. My buddy Wyatt, who I usually like go on all these trips with, like he was gonna come with me. And then it kind of fell through. And then my buddy Jet, who is Zeke's filmer now, but Jet, I was like, hey Jet, like, do you want to go with me on this trip? And he's like, at that time he hadn't worked with Zeke yet or even met many people in surfing yet, and like I'm pretty stoked on things are going for him because I've been able to introduce him to some people who have like really helped his life. His parents were actually about to move, or they did move to Dallas, and he was like, oh, I finally found something I'm passionate about, filming surfing, and now I'm like, it's gonna be taken away from me. So I like helped set up him filming for Zeke, and like Zeke houses him and stuff like that, which is sick. Yeah. But Jet came with me on this trip, and it was like pretty gnarly. We literally like drove up there like early in the morning, loaded up all the gear. I had no like vest, like no pole vest or anything. And so like the night before we left, I called like, I don't know, 10 people. No one had one for me. Nate Zoller had an OG Billabong one, like the very first edition, like volume 1 Billabong. All the metal on it was like completely rusted out. I was like, I don't even know if this thing works. And the CO2 cartridge things you couldn't find them like anywhere. No one had them, and thank God, like in Capitola, there's a West Marine, and so we stopped up. We tried to go to Freeline, like all the core surf shops, and they only had ones that are for the new suits because they have a different kind of screw in. But West Marine, like the whatever boat kind of boating store, they have like the old screw in ones, and it was like $18 like each CO2 thing, and I bought like 6 of them because I didn't know if I was gonna need like or whatever. And we tested one out, or we tested 2 out like while we were there, and like both of them worked, and it like blew up, and I didn't even know like how much it was supposed to blow up or whatever. I was like, all right, like looks good, like whatever, we'll figure it out. And I thank God never had to pull them because I don't think like those things are that reliable.
Really?
Dude, I hardly even got. This is like kind of trippy, except for the paddle out. Like we got there, we ate like lunch in Davenport, which is like little past Santa Cruz, like past 4 Mile up on the way there, and it was crazy. Like we get there, or we're eating lunch at Davenport, which is like maybe an hour and a half or hour away from there at that point, and we're checking it. It's like 1 or 2. We're eating lunch there, and it's like flat at Mavericks, but you can see like long lines and like swells coming in, and there was like definitely like you could see the potential, but it was like flat, no one out. And then like as we're driving up there, we almost see like a couple capping. Then we pull into the lot, and like a couple guys are like just coming in who are like kind of, you could tell, are like guys who would only be out there when it's like barely capping, and they come in and they're like, it just like started like there's bombs or something.
And what was like going through your head?
I went from being like, oh, thank God I'm not gonna have to surf tonight, to like, holy shit, fucking put all the stickers on the board, wax up, like I drove all the way up here, this is what I'm here for, like I have to get out there, I have to be out there like right now. And like as I'm suiting up, and then like I'm checking the cam like as it's going on, and like I see like legitimately like 20-30 foot waves, and like I think there was like one guy out, and the one guy who was out there at that time, forget his name, but a local guy, and he was like out there when there was like 3 or 4 dudes that were like older that just want to like catch a wave at Mavericks, but like kind of mellow, and then they were like out of there once it started to turn on, and we were like not sure if it was like really gonna happen, but the period was like so long that once it did start, it was like boom, like game on, and like Jet and I like ran down, like I first stickered up, waxed up everything, and then we ran down, and like as I'm running down, walking down, he had like this cool VHS. We got like some cool like B-roll on the walk down, and as we're walking down, there's like the harbor, like sticks here, and like we see like 2 jet skis come out of the thing, and it was like Luca, Padua, and who else was out there that night? A couple other dudes. There's 2 local dudes that were the only other guys who paddled out from shore, like at that time when it was like freaking bombing. And I remember like getting to the shore, and it was funny. The guys like ran past me, and they're like, "Good luck, Pinky," or something, because I had just dyed my hair pink. And they were like, "Good luck, Pinky," like, like kind of like laughing at me, like, "Oh, what is this kid doing here?" Like, good luck. Like, I had no idea how to paddle out or anything, and I watched them like run up to like where there's a little rock and like goes around this way, and it comes from super deep water there, but there's like 10-foot waves like breaking into the rock there. But I guess
there's like no channel?
No. Like if you time it right though, like you can jump out off that rock and like take a couple quick paddles, and you're like kind of like where your hair's dry, the waves don't break. But I was like not gonna, like maybe if they waited for me and like, "Oh, here, this is where you paddle out," then I would have gone that way. But I was like, that's like too gnarly, like I could die before I even get out there trying to go out that way. So I was like, okay, the rock is here and Mavericks is here. If I like paddle at this rock and then like go this way, I should be able to like punch out maybe, but there's like 15-foot waves like breaking all the way across, like all the way in, and then it's like 30-foot out here, and like this is just like the inside. But the waves are kind of mushy. Even though it's like 10-15 foot, it's like really mushy in there. But it was still like I wasn't able to duck dive them, but I was like able to kind of like get a little traction. But it literally pushed me all the way to almost where the harbor like ends, which I swear it goes for like a half mile right there. And I finally punched out, and I see one guy coming out on a ski. He's part of like the Mavericks like rescue team, and I think his name's Frank Chiarte. He's a photographer too, and literally like he was just about to zoom by me. He was like almost right in front of me, and I was like looking at like the whole channel. I was like, this is like a mile or 2 that I'm gonna have to paddle before I'm even out there.
Your filmer Jet was probably like where are you?
Yeah, he was like tripping. He was like, he didn't even know where I was at this point. And thank God I just started yelling and waved my board, and the guy saw me and whipped around. He's like, "You all right? Like, you need help?" I was like, "Oh, do you think you can get me a ride out?" He's like, "Yeah, hop on." So he freaking motored me right out there, and I like pull up and like went from being like, "Oh, like this is gonna be gnarly," to like getting out there and being like, why did I even want to like come surf Mavericks? Like, what did I just get myself into? I swear the barrels are like 40 feet wide.
Wow.
Like, it's crazy. Wow. And then I got pretty lucky. Like, I got like 2 rights that night, and I like made the drop, like made it to the channel, and there were smaller ones for what was coming in that night. Like Alos Labier, he got like a 40-foot wave that night. Like, he's one of the hardest chargers at Mavericks up from Santa Cruz. Definitely someone I look up to. There's John Mel too, obviously his dad Peter Mel, but like there's a crew of guys up there that are just so gnarly. There was a guy named Hunter that was super gnarly, goofy foot dude. But it's the thing that I was like, my goal when I went there was to go left. So like that wasn't gonna happen that day because it was like closing out the whole left channel. But the next day when it like mellowed out a little bit, we surfed I surfed the left and got like 2 on the left, and I ended up getting like 10 waves in 2 days and in like 8 hours at Mavericks, and like never got smoked by 1 wave, which was like the biggest blessing. And I was like had a couple like cat and mouse situations, but it's trippy. Like it's kind of like a huge lowers peak that barrels and then like kind of like might spit like each way and then like clamp down. But like if you can imagine when you're at lowers, there's like a certain point where it's like the furthest tip out, and like the waves hopefully aren't going to break further out than that, and then you can be in this like diamond zone where like if you paddle far enough to the side, you're kind of still out of the way, and like you're able to do that at Maverick sometimes. I had one where I like had just paddled for a right and I missed it, and like I could tell it was like if I went straight I was gonna be like fucking in the lip, and I just made it like over the side, like wow. But like I don't know, that wave was crazy.
How much does faith play into like those kind of situations and the rest of your life?
That's the biggest thing, Xavier. 100% is like faith in knowing, or faith in like not knowing what's gonna happen, but faith in that you feel like what you're doing is like what you obviously want to do, but like I don't know. There's something to be said about like if you're going to surf, whether it be like a sharky place, gnarly wave, like you have to be like okay with the risks or like what might happen, and like know that if you go out doing what you love, like maybe it is a part of God's plan in like some little bit of a messed up way. Like there is kind of like a beauty in like going out in a way doing what you love, and I feel like surfing like has given me so much. So like if I were to go out surfing, like I feel like it's like meant to be or something, you know, or it's like honestly like you're a part of the ocean forever or whatever it might be. But I try to always just stay positive and think positive, but like I've had some gnarly injuries from surfing, and it's just like part of it. It's part of any sport. But like the biggest like faith is like I have like faith in God that like hopefully I'm gonna be all right, but you never know what's gonna happen. Like it's all part of God's crazy plan.
God's plan. Looking back at your 18-year-old self, could you imagine where you are today?
I definitely wanted to be able to get some of the barrels that I've gotten and like build my relationships with family and friends, but I didn't know at 18 that I would be like a major part of a non-alcoholic brewing company. So that's like a part that I never saw coming, like to be honest at all. And if I ever thought that it would be something, I would thought that it would probably be something with alcohol, but I think it's special to have something that is like an alternative to people who love a good beer and want the taste of like a full-bodied, crisp, refreshing beer, but like not the poison, you know?
I agree.
Yeah, so well said. Well, Max, it's been really fantastic having you on the show. Thank you for sharing your insights and experiences with us. To our listeners, make sure to follow Max's work and keep up with his latest projects. Max, where can they find your story and follow you?
On Instagram, probably be the best at MaxBeach82, or I don't know, Capacity Brewing at Capacity Brewing.
You got like a YouTube or anything else?
My YouTube is just Max Beach. Awesome. And that's like something I've been trying to build a lot more, but see what happens.
Collaborations in the future.
Yeah. 100%. Well, thank you so much for joining, and yeah, stay tuned for our next episode. Thanks for listening.
Yes, thanks, Xavier.
Of course. Thanks for coming back.
You guys are legends.